Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Horns Up. I'm Animesh.
And I'm Peter.
And Peter, we've had quite a good last week, quite a tiring last week too, but this was something that we aren't really complaining about.
Definitely not, man.
And that's because we got Devin Townsend, we got Plini, we got Control Alt Delete. It was a weekend full of gigs.
Yeah, a long weekend for me, man.
Yeah, you attended like almost all 4 days.
No, 3 out of 4 days, and my knees are kind of like...
We be getting old, my friend. We be getting old.
Hashtag getting old.
Okay, so let's talk about the one that I really enjoyed a lot.
Well, I enjoyed it as much as you, and I would probably say this has been a highlight for me for the past few years, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it would fit into that kind of category for me. Of course, we are talking about the Devin Townsend gig. It was a very private, very intimate gig which was set up at the Levi's Lounge in Bombay. Only around 60 people or so.
Yeah.
I think even fewer than that. And I don't really have any words to describe it other than magical, inspirational, and I'm still speechless about how to describe the sheer energy and good vibes that Devin gave out.
Yeah. I mean, just to put it into context, when it was announced and when Devin tweeted it out, I think all the metalheads in India were kind of like, what? Devin's playing in where? And Levi's Lounge in Bombay? And then you realized it, he's kind of doing this as part of a tour. So we would be one of the first few to witness. Because for anyone who knows Devin Townsend, he's known for Strapping Young Lad. He's known for his Devin Townsend project and, Ocean Machine and all Casualties of Cool, all the different projects. No one's ever kind of seen him in an acoustic avatar.
Well, he has been doing acoustic gigs off and on over the last, quite a few years, especially after the release of Key.
Yeah.
And the release of Ghost and the release of Casualties. He has been doing acoustic gigs. But yeah, I didn't expect him to come down here to do this gig. Thank God he had that Delhi wedding to go to, and he managed to like do this and saw this opportunity to do a gig. Hats off to him for recognizing that.
Who would have thought like somebody getting married in India would be the catalyst for Devin playing a gig?
Yeah. Okay, so here's what happened at the gig. This was an acoustic gig unlike any other I've been to, because for roughly 2 hours, it was just Devin sharing his life with us through songs. And it's not even as if this was a planned set list. We could see the gears churning in his mind as to what song to play next, because it was so organic and so loose. He was not only taking requests from the audience as to which song to play next, but he was doodling on his guitar a lot. He was trying to figure out what to play next. He was trying to figure out parts that he had forgotten.
Yeah, and it was a very stripped down kind of... It was as if we were sitting in his studio in Vancouver, man.
Yeah, it was more of a fireside chat rather than a gig. Yeah. And I think that worked really well, because you get to spend quality time with the artist whom everybody in that room was a fan of.
Definitely.
It was basically, let's get to know Devin better by asking him questions, and he proceeds to tell stories. And in the middle, here and there, are songs. And of course, holy shit, it's like we heard the most, possibly one of the heaviest renditions of Love in a completely acoustic format.
For me, that was the surprise of the night. I mean, you come in with the thing that, Devin's recorded MFAT, so we kind of speculated that we would hear a bit of it. I even called out and said, play Genesis, and he said he hadn't learnt it as yet. And then suddenly he breaks out into Love, and I was like, whoa, okay, I have to take out my camera and record this, because this is going to always be in my memory.
Yeah, oh my God, that Love was excellent. Deadhead was superb.
Yeah.
I never thought it could be pulled off acoustically, but he did it. Of course, he did the acoustic songs, which were Iya and stuff, but overall, damn, and the whole crowd joining in to sing Super Crush.
Yeah. that was a lot of fun, man. It was like Devin Townsend karaoke, heavy metal karaoke with Devin Townsend.
But on acoustic guitar.
Yeah, on acoustic guitar.
And that acoustic sound, sure, Devin's known for his wall of sound approach, but I didn't think that would translate to an acoustic setting. And yet he managed to do that too.
Yeah.
I haven't heard an acoustic guitar sound that good in a long, long time. I don't know. Maybe it's just me fanboying over this.
We're big total fanboys.
Yeah, total fanboys. Devin coughed at me. Yay. No, but I did manage to snag a plectrum, and all of us got pictures. So completely worth the money. It sucked that Devin had a cold, but here's the best thing about it. He didn't really tune down his energy that much because of his cold. And we saw how progressively worse his voice kept getting and how much it was bothering him. Damn, those 2 hours, last Friday night. Yeah, it's been etched into memory, I think. It's one of the most positive memories.
Of course.
Yeah, over the last year or so, definitely.
No, for me it was damn strange. Like, just, for half the gig I was kind of comprehending that, I'm actually watching Devin Townsend play in front of me, like less than 5 feet away.
Yeah.
And I actually got a Ghost CD, so got him to sign it. That was really cool. And at some point I just blabbered something. So if you're listening to this, sorry, Devin. Fanboys here.
Yeah, total fanboys. I actually went up to him and asked him, "Hey, Devin, can I hug you?" And he let me do that. Yeah, so it was that kind of fanboying gig.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was Devin Townsend. Lovely to talk about it.
Yeah.
We could have done a podcast with him, but we chose not to.
I think we would have blabbered like 100 times more than this, and we would talk about everything else other than music.
Because surprisingly, that's something that he enjoys doing a lot too. He doesn't like talking about his music.
Yeah, so hopefully, the main thing I'm taking out of it is something he said, that he would love to come down with the band. So whichever promoter has a big heart and a bigger Devin Townsend fanboy than both of us put together, please bring him down.
Yeah. Although it'll be weird now, right? Like with Empath, it won't be. It's certainly not going to be the Devin Townsend project.
But I think he's already got.
He does have gigs lined up already. Right?
He has gigs, so he probably has a band.
Is he doing 3 drummers on those gigs as well?
I'm not sure. It'll be cool to see Anup Shastri with him, because I've already seen Anup play with Sky Hour. So it'd be kind of cool.
And, well, we are Indian, so we can always leech off that Indian connection. Don't get any ideas. Okay, sorry for that. So that was Devin, but the night before, Peter actually managed to catch another instrumental prodigy. This time it was an Australian. He's only 26 years old. What did you make of Plini?
Man, if Devin blew my mind, the night before, Plini blew my mind with his instrumental music, man. I have never seen Toady Mill Social that packed.
How many people?
I would say 400 people.
Into that space?
Yeah.
It must be like a Virar local, man.
Trust me, it was not the most comfortable gig, but I didn't see anyone complaining.
Okay.
Unlike if you've seen the viral video that went of Plini from Brutal Assault, there was no wall of love or wall of death, but it was everybody just kind of in awe. And it wasn't just Plini. That was one of the things I really enjoyed about the entire performance that he did.
Okay.
It wasn't just about him, but it was the entire band. And compared to most instrumental music, which, on the record, yes, sounds a bit sterile and stuff like that, this was completely different. And again, if you've heard or you're a fan of Plini, you kind of hear his music, the kind of emotion that it kind of brings out. Live, it was 10 times more, man. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, I'm going to, of course, use the cliched Indian term that we always used to use on the forums, feel hai. And that's exactly it, man. There was feel in that music. You could feel the emotion. You could feel each note, the way they were playing it. And one thing I must note, that most bands that I've watched over the past few years always keep their favorite or their most popular song for the end and the encore.
Yeah.
Plini played Salt and Charcoal, a song which has, I think, easily more than 1 million views or streams, first up. And I was like, whoa. And it kind of grabs you by the neck and, it just keeps stopping. They did a drum solo bit, so it was really nice that, he kind of acknowledged the rest of the band.
Did he bring along musicians with him, or was it a local setup?
So it's a 4-piece band, including Plini.
Okay.
And the rest of the guys, I don't want to give too much from what we spoke to him, but, all of them experienced musicians. You can really tell. I mean, if you think about it, it is also, since you've played Animesh at Toady Mills, it can be quite intimidating to have 400 people in Toady Mills Social and, kind of in your face. But this had a complete different vibe to it. And compared to most of the gigs I've seen over there, which has been a little more boisterous and stuff like that, this was still far more. And I guess it's also the people that came down for the gig. So overall, it was a great night. I enjoyed myself a lot. The next morning I did regret it a bit, but yeah, man.
Here's a left field question for you, because this gig was at Toady Mills. So having played at Toady Mills 2 or 3 times now, I've learned that the biggest indicator of whether your music is, or whether your gig is going well or not, is to check if the bartenders are into the music or not. Because what happens is the bartenders are exposed to gigs every day. If the bartenders aren't bobbing their heads along or aren't enjoying themselves, then that means it's not cutting with anybody.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you happen to look at the bartenders?
I couldn't even see the bartenders, let alone get to the bar. I'm telling you, it was that packed. At some point, I was a little worried for the people who were on the upper level. And some of them were close to like power sources and stuff like that. So I was ouch, this will not end well if it goes downhill from here. But, I'm glad things went off smoothly. It was cool to see Plini at the Devin Townsend gig the next day. And he also had a pretty great time. He said, his words, it was ridiculous.
All right. Okay, so fantastic gigs. We did attend Control Alt Delete too, but we aren't going to talk about that in this very episode. And that's because we actually managed to get some time to talk to Plini and interview him and just basically, shoot the breeze with him. Relatively good, fun conversation. We talk a lot about his journey. We talk a lot about his professional life as a musician now and how that's affecting him. And there may be a hint or two about what's next on Plini's radar too. So let's get into that conversation. Here's Plini on Horns Up. So we are outside 30 Social in Bombay. It's a pleasant evening, and more importantly, we have with us Australian guitarist extraordinaire Plini.
Hello.
Welcome to Horns Up, mate.
Thank you.
So, the nicety is first. How's India treating you so far? The Bangalore gig was a sold-out gig.
Yeah.
How was that show go?
I think we all realized we were just eating in the venue like an hour ago and realized that India is one of the best places to tour because I guess we experience a lot of the crazy stuff driving through traffic and all that, but we don't live here, so we just get this short taste of like the best food, amazing crowds, amazing hospitality. And yeah, last night was like perfect example of that. One of the best crowds I've ever played to in my life. All the venue staff are amazing. Promoters are really nice. It's just, good times.
Is the Indian crowd significantly different from any of the crowds you've played at around the world? What makes us different?
Definitely. I think the closest thing to an Indian crowd that I've experienced is a Spanish or Italian crowd. If you just imagine someone, like a group of people who are really passionate about a football game, it's like the same feeling to us, just people going nuts for everything. It's like drummer drops a stick and 500 people are like, yes! That's cool. Yeah.
All right. It's great to hear that India is treating you well.
Yeah.
It's the least we can do since our cricket team is whooping your cricket team's ass.
I don't care about cricket at all, so yeah. You can have that one.
All right. So the Horns Up is mainly about not only the present, but also how you got here in the
Yeah.
past also. So just let's rewind a few years ago. How did it all began for you? Like, do you come from a musical family? How did you get into music?
Yeah, my dad is an upright bass player and a music teacher, but it was probably my mum that got me into more music. I'm not sure why. I guess just driving around, she would put on like the Beatles and Michael Jackson and stuff like that. When I was, I think, 4 years old, I decided I wanted to play drums. I really wanted to be like Ringo from the Beatles.
Oh, wow.
So I played drums for a few years, but we moved to a smaller place where I couldn't make so much noise, and then I had to give up the drums, and I wasn't good at all. I wasn't even as good as Ringo. And then I've said that joke in a few interviews, but I'm proud of it. I had a ukulele, or I guess the family had a ukulele, which I played until it broke, and then I had the choice to get a new ukulele or a guitar, so I got a really cheap 3/4 scale acoustic guitar and started playing like Green Day and Oasis and what everyone plays. And then eventually started recording it. I think this would have been when we got our first laptop that had like a built-in webcam mic. So I would record acoustic guitar into the webcam mic in GarageBand, which is like the free Mac software, and then put distortion on it. And that was like my first experience of recording rock music, and it sounded like shit, but it was a lot of fun. And then when I was, I think, my 11th birthday, I got my first cheap Strat electric guitar, which was 15 and a half years ago, and I guess I've been playing electric guitar for that long now. Eventually started trying to learn more about recording. At this point, I was using a regular instrument cable into an adapter that would go into the webcam mic input. And like anyone who records knows, you're meant to use an interface sound card sort of thing to get everything right, and I didn't do that, but it was still fun. Eventually got more professional and started to buy some gear and got more serious about home recording, and then started releasing music just for free on the internet probably 6 or 7 years ago. Then went to university, studied architecture, graduated that after working in architecture for a little while, and decided I didn't want to do that full-time straight away. So I got together a band, played a show. Show went really well, turned into an Australia tour, and then we've kind of just been doing laps of the world ever since.
So but just to wind back a little bit to what you said, while you were, still figuring out the recording and, getting yourself your first guitar and stuff like that, what are the artists or guitarists that really inspired you at that time?
So once this sounds insulting, but upgraded from Blink-182 and Green Day, I guess I started to get into metal, so I found obviously Metallica and stuff like that, and then Lamb of God, Mastodon, Gojira, Protest the Hero, Meshuggah, Dillinger Escape Plan, and at the same time I also found Dream Theater, which meant like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Yngwie, and all the like crazy shred guitarists as well. And so that was when I was getting really into playing guitar and writing music. It was sort of that popular metal and like sort of prog metal and all the iconic guitarists that I was listening to.
All right. You touched upon this. Let me bring it back.
Yeah.
When did you realize that you could do music as a full-time gig? Was it like an epiphany? Did you find your calling or something of that sort?
Not really. I think I'm still skeptical whether I can, because maybe the next songs I write are terrible and I can no longer do this. But when I played my first gig and the guarantee for the show was more than I would get paid in a day at my architecture job, I was like, that blew my mind. I mean, I still lost a lot of money because you have to rent gear and pay a band and all that stuff. But just the fact that I could play music and be paid for it I think that was definitely an epiphany. But since then, I just kind of take it as it comes, and we'll see what happens.
And how would you describe the whole transition from, recording in your bedroom to playing across the world? How would you describe that entire journey?
Insane, I guess. Yeah. It was really helped because the band that I play with are all professional musicians, so they've all been in bands for years, played tons of shows. So when we did our first show, rather than having 4 scared people who didn't know what they were doing, there was just me and then 3 professionals, and so that's like a 75% good band straight away, and I'm sort of slowly catching up to them. And yeah, I guess we're all super passionate about making good music, so everyone's always trying to play as well as possible and put on a good show, so you don't really have to worry about that. And we're all good friends, so it's fun.
All right. You've been quite prolific in the last 5 years, releasing almost new piece of music or a new body of work almost each year.
Yeah.
How has being and performing on the road changed your writing or your creation process, if at all?
Maybe one thing I've noticed is the music that I write now compared to before I'd ever played live seems to work better live more immediately. So taking a song that I'd recorded and like where I'd written the drums and the bass and all that, to turn it into a live song took more work in the beginning, whereas now for some reason we'll get together and play the song like the recording and it just feels good straight away.
Do you test out new material for an audience on your in your shows?
I guess so. I mean, we put in the set list and then play it, and then usually it's terrible the first time, but then as we get more comfortable, it becomes more comfortable.
Okay, so no overt major changes to your writing process then?
No, not really. I think the process is generally that I'm just trying to make the best possible music I can, and I guess what's changed is I've learnt more, which means hopefully the stuff I write in the future is going to be different to in the past. And also when I'm writing now, if I notice that I'm doing something very similar to something I've already done, it makes me a little bit uneasy because I want to be changing.
Do you get curious when you're traveling? Like, for example, you're traveling in different parts of the world and you're being exposed to radical new cultures almost every month. Do you look out for sounds or music patterns which then you can get inspired by or influenced by?
Yes. I think if we had more time in India, there's a little cat. I'd definitely want to try and see as many local bands as possible in all genres. But I guess the reality of touring is that there really isn't that much time in a day to do that. So instead, I mean, I get to experience like the food and coffee culture of different places. That's probably what I do the most besides the actual just setting up and playing.
All right. Okay, I want to talk a little business with you now.
Yep.
Now, you've been doing this at a time when the music industry has kind of accepted the power of the internet.
Yep.
Yeah. And what the internet does to really, bring in fans, listeners, those who back you with their money in any shape or form, right? What have you learned about the business of music, and how much of your time do you devote to that aspect?
I'm not sure exactly, but I'm sure it's at least 50-50, or it's probably more business than making music, just because there's so much stuff all the time. One thing I've noticed from doing everything myself is that most people in the music industry don't necessarily know what they're doing, which is kind of comforting, and which I think should be inspiring for anyone who's starting out, because it's all totally within reach. It's not like you need to be born with the ability to, I don't know, read a contract or something. What was the question?
How much of your time are you spending on it then? Okay, let me ask you a follow-up then. Even something, trivial as managing social media or checking YouTube or Spotify for the amount of plays, tracking your music there, right down to gate sales or merch sales. What's your level of involvement, given that at the end of the day, it's your brand that is being sold as the experience, right?
Yeah.
Not that it's more of an individual than the band itself.
Yeah. I guess I put 100% of my time into it. I think I like photography, and I like that aspect of social media, which makes keeping like Instagram and Facebook active not so much work. Like I have friends who make music where the idea of having to post something on social media is annoying because they're like, all right, I got to get this thing, I have to figure out what I'm going to write, and then it can take like half an hour to just announce a tour or announce an endorsement or something like that. But I'm a little more comfortable with it, although I have noticed that there is now a formula for announcing a tour, which I do, and it makes me hate myself, which is basically country, ! Can't wait to come back, flag of the country emoji, insert some sentence that's going to make this tour special compared to the last tour, and then ticket link. And like every time I do this, it's like, India, can't wait to come back and play my new EP in full, Indian flag, ticket, emoji.
So I think you should update your LinkedIn or whatever with copywriter also.
Yeah. But then I guess that whole side of the music industry is something I just find funny because there's so much like the need for everything to constantly have hype. Like this is going to be my biggest and smallest and quietest and loudest release ever. And it's like, cool. But yeah. So to answer the question, I spend a lot of time on that side of things, but I guess trying to have fun with it.
Right. So since you brought up your release, I mean, you're touring in support of your latest EP, Sunhead, which released last year. And when I was looking at the statistics for Salt and Charcoal, you have over 500,000 streams just on YouTube for the song.
Yeah.
Were you expecting the kind of reaction to that track?
Not necessarily. I don't know. YouTube's kind of weird because some of the stuff I've put on has like almost millions of views, and then others are less than 100,000. But I don't really care. I just kind of do it because I like it, and then see what happens.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's great. I'm very happy.
Right. Another question about the EP. On this release, more than others, you've got quite a few collaborators on.
Yep.
You've got Devesh Dayal, our homeboy from Sky Harbor. You've got John Vaughan. You've got Tim Miller. How does the whole collaboration process happen with you?
They're all friends. Like they're all people who, first and foremost, I just really like. Like if they were sitting here with us, we'd be having fun. That's kind of like criteria number one. Criteria number two, they're fucking incredible at whatever they do. And I guess criteria three, they are all amazing at something that I can't do. So Devesh is really into like pop EDM production, and that's why I got him to do those kind of like EDM vocals on Salt. And I mean that whole thing was just kind of funny because I had the song almost finished and I could sort of hear that part would work. And it was about 1 a.m. and I just texted him. He would have been in LA, which is 5 hours ahead, but the day before, it doesn't really matter. So it would have been 6 a.m. for him, and he was awake, I think, producing a song. And I was like, hey, dude, you want to put some vocals on this song? And he's like, yeah. I was like, all right, I'll send it to you. And then I was like, actually, wait, I'm going to go to sleep, and then I'll send it to you. And then he was like, okay. And I was like, actually, no, I'll send it to you now. And then he was like, okay. And then I sent it to him, went to sleep, woke up, and he'd sent me basically the whole thing. And it wasn't meant to be serious, but now I guess I've committed that to life forever. And yeah, same story with the rest of them. John I met because my sound guy grew up with him in the UK, and he's obviously an amazing sax player. Tim Miller I met at a music convention, and Ola Strandberg, who makes the guitars that I play, met him at the convention because he was walking past and knew that I loved him, so brought me over to meet him. And then I found out that he teaches at Berkeley Music School and had a bunch of students learning my songs with him. Wow. So I guess that was like my easy way in with him. And then Anomaly, who played keys, sort of similar story, just met friends of friends, really nice guy, amazing keyboard player, and I just wanted to do something with him.
Okay. Have you begun writing for your next block of music that's going to be released? Any news that you can share with us on that front?
I got 3 songs that are maybe 80% done, and 6-ish that are maybe 20 or 30% done. I definitely want to make an album. I don't know how many songs, but after this tour and then a US tour, I'm pretty much home for the rest of the year, so I'm just going to work on that and see what happens.
Any collaborations this time around that you're probably angling for?
Yes, I haven't figured out exactly who, but yes.
So some musicians listening to this.
Yeah.
Right.
But they will be the best and biggest collaborations to date.
Keshav Dar, are you listening? So, yeah. So, you alluded to the tour, so I'm just going to ask you about that. You're heading on your North American tour later this month.
Yep.
What are you looking forward to the tour? I mean, you alluded a little bit earlier also to how much you enjoy touring the States and stuff like that. What are you looking forward from this?
So one of the acts on the tour is Mystique, which is Javier from Animals as Leaders. And when I first started touring, I went to Europe, the States, and Australia with Animals. And then in the last year, I've done Europe and Australia with Mystique. So it's kind of awesome that this will be basically the end of my second world tour with Harv. So I'm he's super fun to travel with, so that'll be great. It's the first time I'm touring with a keyboard player in my band, so that's really exciting because he's incredible, Dave McKay. We're playing a really fun set. It's probably my favorite set that we've ever done. Now I'm starting to sound like a press release. But yeah, and it's touring the States has become sort of familiar. Like I've got a merch guy and a driver and a tour manager that I've been around the States with 3 or 4 times, and even just like where we keep the honey in the cupboard is like super familiar now.
All right. Just to kind of wrap up with a few fun questions we got up. So I was just looking at your tour in the last tour while doing research for this, and I realized you've put out an album or an EP almost every year. You're touring so much. Where do you have time to sleep, or do you?
This tour is actually one of the worst for sleep, just because there's so much flying and driving. But usually I sleep quite a lot. Although I need to stop charging my phone next to my bed because I usually wake up and then just snap upright and start emailing people. But I guess, the benefit of doing something that I find really fun is that I can be kind of working every minute that I'm awake, and it's all right. Although I might burn out, but hopefully not.
Okay. From bedroom to touring around the world, you're living the life that many young musicians only dream about, right? What was it like to meet your heroes, if you've met any of them, and any fun stories of first-time meetings? Because there's some proverb, right, that
never meet
meet your heroes.
I mean, I've been really lucky in that everyone that I've met and idolized has been really nice. I'm trying to think of a good story. The first time I met Steve Vai, I felt like a child in school. He's incredibly nice and humble, but I just still felt like, or maybe like a kid at a dinner table with adults, like just really didn't want to say the wrong thing or like fuck up in any way. But he was really sweet. A lot of the people that I grew up listening to that I've met, like Guthrie Govan, it's more hilarious to think about after hanging out with him. Like meeting him was like meeting you guys, just like we feel like old friends. But then thinking about it like a week later, it's like we went on some stupid night out in Sydney when the Aristocrats were there, and if you'd told me that like 10 years ago I was going to take my favorite guitarist in the world to one of the worst bars in Sydney and just talk shit about everything, I wouldn't have believed it at all.
Do you do selfies or autographs?
For money.
No, I meant like with your heroes.
I guess that's a funny thing is, on the one hand, I'm trying to enjoy it and not be weird so I can see them again, kind of like a first date. But on the other hand, I guess, like the business side of me is like, this would like be fire on Instagram.
What about the fan in you?
The fan in me is usually enjoying the experience more than needing to share it with someone else. But yeah.
Okay. Final question.
Yep.
At 26, you're still fairly young, man.
Thank you.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years and in the next 10 years?
Hopefully doing something similar, but on a slower and larger scale, I guess. Like rather than spending half the year or more touring, maybe I could do a quarter of the year, but bigger shows. Not because I really want to play to more people. Like I enjoy any size show, but I'd like to, I guess, like always have a keyboard player or maybe play with a 6-piece band or a 7-piece band. And so to be able to do that and it's as economically viable as touring half the year, that'd be cool. Still being inspired to write music. Yeah.
So generally when we do interviews, we ask our guests to pick one song that defines their previous album, EP, or defines them at the moment.
Yeah.
So Plini, from your discography, is there anything that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Maybe Electric Sunrise.
Cool. So here you go. Here's Electric Sunrise.
So yeah, there you heard it from the man himself. You heard Electric Sunrise. Thanks a lot, Plini, for your time.
Thank you.
Great to do this with you before the show. Have a great show. Any final words you have for our listeners?
Thanks for listening, and I hope I can keep coming back to India because it's awesome. Horns up.
So that was our conversation with Plini. Lovely way to cap off what was a grueling week, but a week that we can't really complain about at all.
I'm not complaining at all, man. I mean, it's very rare that you get to kind of hang out with musicians of their caliber and like back to back. And then, plus Control Alt Delete, where you saw a lot of Indian talent perform. So, yeah, not complaining.
Yeah. So, Control Alt Delete, that's actually going to be our next episode. We aren't really talking about Control Alt Delete, but we did try out a pretty new format there. And tell you what, I won't talk a lot about it. Just tune in next week and check it out for yourselves. It features Pantera and it features Cowboys from Hell.
That's all we're telling you.
Yeah. So keep your ears peeled out for that one. Till then, you can subscribe to Horns Up on any device or any platform you choose to listen to podcasts on. Come on, show us some love, give us some ratings, give us some reviews. You can tell how much the Devin Townsend gig and all the other gigs has mellowed me out, right? I'm asking people to show us some love this time.
It's all your heart.
Yeah. Probably it is. Anyways, subscribe to us, leave us a rating, tell us what you think about us. We are still shit. That's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and any other platform you choose to listen to podcasts on. If you feel like talking to us for whatever reason, Fanboying is always welcome. You can check us out on Twitter. We are at HornsUpPod.
I'm Trend Crusher.
And I'm Asmo Ani. And till next time, Horns Up.
Horns up.